Hello, I'm Kate Davis, and this is Humor in the C-Suite, a show about how leaders use humor to create an extraordinary work culture. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. My guest this week is Dominic George, a leadership coach for Black men. He founded Vision Leadership for Life over 5 years ago, specializing in guiding mid-level professionals to senior leadership roles. With a master's from Columbia University, he leverages his education and expertise to provide tailored coaching that fosters confidence and resilience. Dominic's mission extends beyond career progression, aiming to reshape the narrative for Black men in leadership through personalized sessions that equip clients with the tools needed for influential leadership. We had a great conversation. His positivity and energy is electric and contagious. You guys are gonna love this episode. So please welcome Dominic George. So grateful to have you here. I usually start off the podcast by just having you tell everyone your story. I love what you do and what you're doing. So, and then we'll get into how you use humor in all your coaching and everything.
Well, my name is Dominic George. I'm a leadership strategist, essentially executive coach, founder of Vision Leadership for Life, life standing for live intentional forever. And I believe that people's potential is infinite. And I just absolutely love the progression of people moving forward. And so like I said, I'm originally from California, moved to the East Coast about 10 years ago and have just loved it ever since.
Amazing.
And I've been coaching for, I would say, about half of my life at this point, but in official capacity over the last 20 years, coaching individuals, whether directly or indirectly. And I'm just a lover of life. I am a husband, eldest of 6 brothers, and so many brothers. It was a fun household growing up. But I just, I love life. When I'm not coaching, I'm probably doing some level of artistry, drawing and landscape. I'm also into architecture and design. So a plethora of things that I'm interested in and do in my spare time, but in essence, a life strategist and executive coach.
Oh, all of that just sounds incredible. I can't wait to ask you questions.
Yes.
So within your coaching, you've really been doing it seriously for 20 years, which is an incredible career in coaching. And I know the industry has changed a lot in terms of, just being like the diversity of it. When I was a kid, most leadership were scary men. Like I do, like I always remember principals at school being these, really scary men. And now when I just spoke at a principals conference and it was mostly women, and I was like, wow, I never thought I would see that happen. Within your speaking practice, do you find that your techniques and how you're approaching things has changed a lot?
Absolutely. Especially as the workplace changes, you're essentially speaking to a different audience as you grow and develop. I think the technique and the skill is often similar in that progression, but people's interests, people's needs and desires tend to shift as you speak to different types of audience. And so absolutely, I'm always a adamant lifelong learner and interested in evolving at every single point. So I would definitely say in the last 20 years, I've evolved and changed in my approach as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? Like leadership used to be like you had to be the most authoritative in the room. Now I feel like you need to be the most relatable.
Absolutely.
How are you using humor or like in your coaching?
My first job ever, actually, I would say the first maybe 3 jobs that I had the pleasure and the opportunity of working with really close friends. It just by happenstance, like my friends would join into the work that I was doing or vice versa. I would join into the work that they were doing. And it was such a gift because it helped me learn how to have fun at work while also progressing forward in my own career. Because when I was like in those moments where I was getting in what I call my nerds, or just uncomfortable, whatever it is, and I was trying to progress forward and be a certain way, my friends would always call me out and be like, "What are you doing? Who are you right now?" And we would always come get pulled to the side and just laugh about something. And so
Yeah.
in my coaching practice, that is a central point of how I create my identity with others and become that relatable individual. I believe if you're not having fun at work, it's probably not the right place for you, because we're on this planet for so long, or a short period of time rather, and it's you only have a short period to make an incredible impact, and I believe you should have fun along that journey. And so I'm always looking for the laughable moment, the laughable opportunity in the pain sometimes, because leadership can be painful.
Yeah.
And it really creates an atmosphere where you get to move forward quickly when you're laughing with others and you're having fun in the work that you're doing, and hopefully it's impactful whatever you've decided to do.
Yeah, and it really does trickle down from there in terms of leadership and everyone that they're, who is working under them or they're
Mhm.
guiding. And I have that as well. I call that imposter syndrome when I
Yes.
first started, right? You're always like, am I real? Aren't I? And you're like, yeah, you are. Yeah, it's really interesting. Do you find that humor, like within your coaching realm, when you are coaching leaders, do you find it really helps with collaboration and stuff like that and building trust?
Yeah, absolutely. Trust. I find when people are comedic or just comical in general, I gravitate to that myself
Yeah.
on a personal level. And so it automatically invites trust for me. I know that depending on who you work with, the lines can be a little blurred, and you have to be sensitive to how you approach humor in certain ways.
Yeah.
But I find that it really does build trust rather quickly, when you can make someone laugh and feel comfortable in their
Yeah.
space or in a new space, if they're a new employee or even if they're more senior and you're just getting to know them. Creating those spaces where you get to laugh together is, I think it's a point where you build the relationship quicker, and that trust gets to develop, and then you get to continuously make impact as you're sometimes having those hard conversations, because you get to rely back on, hey, we're actually, we have a relationship where we get to laugh, but we also get to be serious in those moments where it
Yeah.
calls for it.
A rapport,
Yeah,
that back and
exactly.
forth, that is it is hard to build. And really working on that in the good times. So
Mm.
when work does become challenging, you work better as a team. For
Yes.
sure. Are there any techniques you're using within your coaching to help them trust those moments, or to trust that they can bring levity into their workplace and people are still going to get the job done?
Yeah, the first question I asked in a coaching session was, "What was the best part of your week?" And that
Okay.
usually invites an opportunity where people get to drop their shoulders a little bit. They get to think
Yeah.
about, what was actually fun about your week, because we often come with, as leaders, we're addressing problems, we're creating
Yeah.
solutions, but we often forget about the fun moments. And there's so many fun moments in this lifetime,
Yeah.
and so that's usually the first question I'll ask is like, what was the best part of your week? And that usually lends to, what was fun? And if they don't
Yeah.
call it out, I'll just call out directly, where did you have fun today? And then we'll laugh about
Yeah.
it.
So, I mean, it really does play a role in building strong relationships.
Yeah.
But within that, do you find that, have you encountered like challenges or misinterpretations? How are you getting them to really hone into that?
Absolutely. And I had a moment where it just turned out horrible. I was trying to create, laughable moments with this person. And I remember they were so serious. Like they would come into work, it was all about business. And some people operate like that, where business is business. And then you, in your 9 to 5, and then you
Yeah.
leave at 5, and then it's like the party person comes out. And I remember I was trying to build a rapport with this person and creating moments of laughter, and we just weren't clicking in the moment. And there was a
Yeah.
moment where I thought it was extremely funny. I won't repeat the scenario because it might be
Oh,
triggering if
come on.
they listen to it. But I thought it was extremely
Yeah.
funny, like that moment, and I just started laughing. And um, and so that was the moment. I thought it was fun. And then later that person came to me and they felt like I was attacking them in that laughter. And it made me realize through that conversation, that difficult conversation that we had, that I have to be conscious of the power that I hold in my leadership position,
Mm.
because my someone else's interpretation is not always going to be my interpretation. And
Yeah.
there's a line between like what's fun versus what's business, and you just have to figure out what that line is. I often rely
Yeah.
on emotional intelligence to really define what those lines are. But comedy is a, a line
Perspective.
that's yeah, it's definitely a
Yeah.
perspective, and a line that's hard to
So
cross
did
if it's
you
in
did you
with the wrong
find you're
person.
able to fix that relationship?
Absolutely. And
Oh,
that's always the goal, right?
yeah.
Like, how do you continuously build trust when it's broken?
Yeah.
And it took some time. It took some us making time outside of the workplace, outside of the
Mhm.
actual work, to really understand, like, who are you? Where are you coming from? What does this mean when you do X versus Y? And just having those clarifying conversations so that you can get to a point of
Yeah.
relational building, and then eventually that trust then leads to laughter. But that was a
Yeah.
moment where it definitely went
Yeah.
left and wrong. But
Did
I
you
learned
ever
so much from it.
did you ever think, "Oh, you're just not my person?" Like,
There are certain people. There are certain people like that. I didn't think it of this person, but I
yeah.
have had those moments where I'm interacting with someone and I'm just like, we're not gonna click in this laughable
Yeah.
way.
And that's
And so I
okay.
just yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because I do want to laugh at everybody,
Yeah.
but there's some people where it doesn't click, and you just have to accept that.
Okay. So I feel very like because I was reading up on you, obviously, and you have a lot of black men in business.
Hmm.
You say that on your profile, and like being authentic and empowering them and teaching different leadership like that. Do you find that there's a difference when you're dealing with the race card, or am I allowed to I see even I'm uncomfortable. I'm like, am I allowed to ask this? I like it just it becomes this like, but you do like that seems to be like who you're helping. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Or am I
Absolutely.
blind?
Um, well, no, absolutely. That's definitely my population that I primarily
Yeah.
work with in my leadership development. And Kate, you can ask all the questions you want. This is an opportunity where everybody gets to
Well,
learn. I get to learn.
like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
so interesting to me because I find it there's still a lot of racism out there. We know that. And
Hmm.
especially when it comes to leadership and C-suite people, I don't see a lot of women in those roles either,
Yeah.
quite frankly, or it's, few and far between unless they've started their own companies. And I
Hmm.
think the dynamics is changing, but I definitely think, when I see your leadership for life and all that, like it's such a tremendous tool that people can use within, those worlds. Are you finding the humor is very different?
Uh,
Or
I actually think that humor is universal.
yeah,
Like, people want to laugh and they want to have a good time. And when you laugh hard, you just feel good about yourself. And so I
yeah,
actually think humor and laughter is universal, but the interpretation of who you're speaking to change based on your experience of that individual, that culture, that population. And
yeah,
sometimes that prevents people from actually having the relationship, or prevents individuals from getting to that point where they could actually laugh together. Something that I work with leaders around is understanding, like, what's your mask versus what's your actual mirror. And when I think about the mask that people wear at work in life,
yeah,
it's often something that's hardening them. It's something that they feel like they have to put on a persona or a perspective in order to relate to people, versus the mirror. When you get up in the morning, you're looking in the mirror, or you go to the bathroom at the break, or on your break, you're looking in the mirror and you're looking at yourself, and that's who you truly are. And sometimes, like, people often talk to themselves in the mirror, either via motivational, or maybe you've had a hard day and you just have to look yourself in the eyes and say, I got this. But it's that mirror moment where you're actually looking at your reflection, you're looking at yourself and your own identity. And what I coach around is, how can you create more mirror moments in your leadership? Because when you are authentic and you're truly yourself, that's when you invite the relationship. That's when the transparency and the authenticity and the honesty gets unfolded, where people feel trust enough to be able to laugh with you. And so I often coach between those two things.
I love that. The
Yeah.
mask in the mirror. That's brilliant. Like, I honestly love that so much because, like, look, this is pretty much it. You get what and sometimes I'm
Yeah,
told I'm too much. And for those people who think I'm too much, you're not my people. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like, it's just
Yeah,
like, okay, I can get that.
yeah,
But I love that. And trusting that you're enough to bring to them,
yeah, exactly.
I think is one of the hardest things. We're just, talking about that, sort of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So, and knowing that you don't need that mask, people,
Hmm.
we want to take it from transactional to human. We
Yes.
want leader, in the book Humor Seriously. It's a great book, everyone. You should read it. But, they really talk about, the one thing that workplace people say they want their leaders to be is human, to
Yeah.
sound like a real person, and we do, we feel,
Which is so hard in this AI space.
yes. But even more important now, right?
Yes, exactly.
Even more important to bring yourself because AI can't be you. It
Yeah.
can pretend to be,
Yes.
apparently.
But it's definitely not you. And you
Yeah.
brought up a great point, Kate, around both imposter syndrome and also essentially like feeling worthy. Like, you're worthy of your accomplishments, you're worthy of your position, you're worthy of the things that you say you want to go out and do, your dreams, essentially your goals. And
Yeah.
sometimes that imposter syndrome pushes us. And a lot of the Black men that I work with, end up wearing that mask because of that imposter syndrome. But I believe, just as you named, you're worthy of your dreams and your desires and your leadership spot. And I believe that when you're positioned in a way where you get to have those mirror moments, you get to be authentically yourself in every sense of the workplace, whether that's in the boardroom, in a leadership meeting, or in a donor meeting, like whatever the landscape is, the more you could authentically bring yourself, it invites the laughter, invites the worthiness conversation. And when people get to be themselves, I believe that that's when the imposter syndrome dissipates, and
Yeah.
you create those laughable moments with people.
That's amazing. And you know what? Like, I can't even tell you how often I have to tell myself I am worthy and I'm deserving.
Yes.
And for me, it's like I feel like I should hire you for my coach. That's my coach. Tell me. But it's true. Like, I get in my head. And
Mhm.
then we can scroll for hours and look at everyone's lives looking so incredible, and then you start questioning yourself and all
Mhm.
those things, and then yeah. So I think that's like to the point of really bringing your authentic self to work. I feel like levity and humor allow us to do that. And it's not
Mhm.
about telling the next best joke. It's
Yeah.
really about not taking ourselves so seriously and bringing
Yes.
that to work,
Yeah.
which is so incredible. Do you think humor really helps with like productivity and collaboration?
I'll tell a story, and the answer is yes. But I in my a while ago, I went into a social work school and business because I wanted to blend the two, mental health and
Hmm.
business dynamics. And at some point, I thought I was going down the route of, I actually wanted to be a therapist, because I love people. I love helping people get to a state of wholeness in that well being. And I was going through this exercise with a therapist who were training other therapists. It was called Behind the Mirror, where we got to watch families go through therapy, and and they were everybody signed up for it, like they knew what was happening. But there was a moment where the trainer said a comment, and everyone was like making comments around what they thought that should happen and what was the next question and how the therapy session needed to look. And she turned around and she said, "You all give yourself too much credit. You're not changing these people's lives. They're the ones changing the lives. You're just the vessel to do it." And we all started laughing because we were all taking that moment so serious, where it was like, we're impacting this person's life and we got to ask the right question in the right timing. And she was like, "You give yourself too much credit. You're not that important." And we just busted out laughing. And it was that moment where she pulled in laughter and comedy that allowed
Yeah.
us to relax, which made the whole therapy session so much better because we were being all our authentic self, even though we were
Yeah.
behind the mirror asking these questions. Um,
Mhm.
and yes, when you invite that humor, it makes life so much easier. I talked about dropping your shoulders at work.
Oh,
It's so important to be yourself, and we don't create enough moments where we get to be human and get to
yeah.
relate to each other, because the world will tell you there's a million and one problems, and then you forget all the possibilities and the solutions that you've built along your journey. That it
Yeah.
becomes a stressful place. And again, I love to laugh. My whole friend circle is actually
Yeah.
comedians, so it just makes life a lot better.
Yeah, amazing. It really does. Hi, it's Kate. I can't believe you made it halfway through the show. Look, if you or anyone you know would like to be a guest on Humor in the C-Suite, I would love to have you. So email me, kate@katedavis.ca. Do you find, like, within your work of coaching, have you ever come up with someone you're like, "Oh, no, I can't, you have to stop." like like you're like, this
There
is hard
are,
for you.
yeah, I coined those people difficult people, and
Yeah,
we all have them in our life.
yeah,
The Yes, there are many difficult people in the world, and I believe that there's always a way to touch those people in a way that inspires them to move
yeah,
forward. And so, yes, I've had those moments where I'm like, this is maybe not going to work for us.
yeah.
But that's also me in my own imposter syndrome of like,
Mhm.
am I good enough? Am I worthy enough to coach this person to the next level?
Right.
And sometimes I have to go to my own executive coach or my own journal and write about those things before I get into those sessions or those coaching
Yeah,
dynamics, because it's really not about me, right? Going back to that trainer,
yeah,
it's not about me. It's about that person who is looking for their growth, their development, and
mhm,
their next step. And so I have to get out of my own way and realize that, again, I'm the vessel to help you get to that next level, and that
yeah,
usually helps me get through that moment. And often I'll just call it out, like, this was a
yeah,
difficult moment. We
yeah,
had a difficult conversation, and how do we move past this? Because when
yeah,
you don't address the elephant in the room, that's when the laughter stops, and that's where the
yeah.
tension grows. And so I'll just call it out directly in a way that works for them.
Oh, amazing. It's so important just to it's so funny because I go into coaching sessions where I'll have like 10 leaders in a boardroom and I'll have
Mm,
like 3 hour workshop with them, right? On how to use humor and what kind of, style of humor do they use. And it's hard to be a leader and use sarcastic, or you never
yeah.
want to punch down, like just certain rules. But I get nervous. I'm like, this is a
Mm,
really intimate setting. It's not like I can do stand up or tell jokes to 10 people, like that's weird. And it puts a lot of
mhm.
pressure on them to laugh or pretend laugh. Like I don't want to do that. But I do find I had a coach say to me, it's like going to the mechanic, and I've said this on the show before, but it's like going to a mechanic and you got a rattle in your car, right? And then you go to the mechanic and it won't make the rattle when you drive around and they can't fix it. It's good for me when people can find that humor. Say, no, this, how am I using humor in my office as a doctor, or as, or in military, or by the way, they always have the best senses of humor. I find like the
Yes.
highest level of, pressure jobs. But I do
Hmm.
find, when those difficult moments do come up, I think what you just said is perfect. To really talk about it, really address it, but at the same time, know who's in the room, so to
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
It's really about seeing people, because
Right.
everyone wants to be seen, heard, um, and feel valued in the workplace or in life in general. And the more you could see people, I think it makes you a better leader.
Yeah. And do you think it's important? Do you think humor as a leader is an important element?
Absolutely. You had named something earlier around not being able to be sarcastic in the workplace.
Yes.
And yes, that could be a downfall for many people. Um,
Mhm.
so many of my friends are sarcastic, and I get
Yeah.
them and I
Yeah.
love it.
Of course.
And there was a moment in the workplace where I was leading a high performing team, large team on a national scale. And there was one person who was extremely sarcastic. I remember that this person was like rubbing shoulders with everyone in the way in which they showed up at the workplace. But I was like, I get you. Like, I want to laugh with you. And I had this moment where I got to pull them to the side and talk about the impact that they were making on others. But we also created a moment where we got to be sarcastic with each other because
Right.
that was our language of laughter in that moment, and we
Yeah.
got to share that dynamic. And so sometimes you just have to find your people, and realize when you're impacting others in a way that's not
Yeah.
beneficial to their growth and development.
Mhm.
And so I love that moment when I got to find that person in the
Yeah.
workplace.
And HR wasn't called in. So
Yes, exactly.
that would be the worst HR.
Yes.
We're not firing anyone. No. Oh my God. And okay, so you're coaching, you're truly inspiring with your brand. I love the
Mm,
leadership for life. And
thank you.
what life? Can you just what does it stand for again? I love that.
Yeah, so life is live intentional forever. I talk about this
Right.
often in my coaching as well around intentionality, right? It's about
Yeah.
how you set yourself up as a leader from the start. And some of us have made mistakes in how we've entered in rooms and that first impression, but you
Oh,
could always be
sure.
intentional in
Yeah.
how you like shift that dynamic, how you show up in the workplace, and even how you exit an organization. Like intentionality is so important because it defines your character, right? I
Yeah.
coach around supporting people with understanding their leadership DNA. And it's actually in my book,
Ooh.
I wrote a book called The Authentic Edge, Leading Without Losing Yourself. And
Oh,
inside of that book, I talk about um, your leadership identity and your leadership DNA and how you define that, right? Which is your story, your values, and your non negotiables as a leader. And one of the things I love when people are coming to the realization that they can actually bring their story to work, they can actually bring their values to work and have boundaries around their non negotiables to be a leader. But
yeah.
I think character is like just showing up as yourself and being intentional about that is so important. So
So
life
important.
is live intentional forever.
Oh, so great. So great. And in that intentionality, Ken, there is a place for humor in that. There
Absolutely.
is a place for levity and those
Yes.
finding those moments, especially with your people that you are leading,
Yeah.
as you said before, really does build trust and bring everyone together. That's incredible. Yeah.
You know what's funny is even if it's not your people, like it will
Yeah.
create moments where people just get to relax. I was in a meeting where it was very tense. I This was a couple of years ago, but I was in a meeting where I was trying to get a team to shift from some antiquated ways to some more digital efficient ways, and we kept going back and forth around like, you can't do this, but you can do this, and you can't do that, but you can do this. And someone in the meeting, really close coworker, and we often got to laugh together on the side in public, and it was a good dynamic. But inside of the meeting, because she was so comfortable with me and how I led, um,
Yeah.
she said, "Hey, I have a question. I just want to stop this conversation because it's so tense. And, we're really like in our heads right now, and I just want to laugh for this moment. So let's take 30 seconds." And
Mm,
it completely shifted the dynamic of the conversation. So even if it's not your people, I think inserting yourself and inserting humor
yeah.
can positively impact the work community.
And just taking a moment.
Yeah,
Yeah. Amazing. And you set a game off the top that you play or just ask people, what fun thing
yeah,
have you done this week?
yeah. What was
And
the best
taking
part of your
time.
week? Hmm.
So many great techniques. Are you using humor in your day-to-day life? You said you have a lot of funny friends and all that.
Absolutely. There's so many tense moments that we
Yeah.
could be pulled off track from our destination, our vision, our goal, right?
Yeah.
And I often have moments. I've been fortunate enough to both travel around the world and meet people in so many different locations that I feel like no matter what time zone I'm in, I could call somebody, which is great.
Yeah.
And I have this commitment to myself where at least twice a day I'm calling a friend to laugh, whether it's via text message, video call, or voice
Yeah.
message. Like we just create these moments where we get to laugh and tell a joke, and it's truly transformative
It's a
because
great pressure valve.
it really is, and allows
Yeah.
you to like again relax your shoulders, and you get to show up more authentically when you
Yeah.
are with people who you can relate to and laugh with. So yes, I laugh often.
That is, yeah, I can tell just by your eyes.
Yes.
uh, and it's so when you don't laugh for long periods of time, you really are just really depressed.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
that's like it's this just what the doctor ordered.
Yes.
We've heard it, but implementing it and really trusting in it are
Hmm.
two different things, like everything,
Yeah.
and I think it's great that people have you to remind them it's okay to laugh in those leadership roles,
Yes.
and not just with other leadership people within the company, but with the whole company.
Yes. And that's
And
the important piece.
yes.
Um, to get outside of your own bubble, your own circle. I think that leader, and I coach around this as well, that visibility is so important as a leader.
Mm,
You can't sit behind a desk, you can't sit behind a computer all day. And I know workplace dynamics look different post pandemic.
yeah, of
With the
course.
remote space and in person.
Yeah.
But it's so important to get in front of people in order
Mm,
to allow them to see you as human and to create those spaces where you just get to disconnect from the work. Because if we're not disconnecting at some point, then we're going to be stressed. We're going to feel those emotions that lead to that depressive state. And so you get to interrupt that by inserting humor, being yourself, being authentic, and
yeah.
having those visible moments with your people.
Mic drop. Bam.
Mm.
So I am excited. I'm so excited for my audience to get to know you. Like I just feel like there's so many great techniques here, and so much about leadership is really it's difficult work. It's not easy work, and it can be lonely. And the
Mm.
fact that humor really does really build bridges and allow people to walk across the aisle no matter what your opinion is. There's always a common ground within that. So I
Yes.
always love to end the podcast. What is the funniest thing that's ever happened to you? Is there a story you can share with us?
Absolutely. I'll start with the end, which is I ran into a glass door. Funniest moment,
Always the
but
oh, sorry.
but there was a moment where I was just like, I'm very curious person. I'm very adventurous. I had mentioned like traveling around the world, and I've done some very adventurous things. But I remember one moment I was in a city and I was just exploring the landscape. And what's most important to me when I go to cities is to actually be in community and meet people and try. So I try to find those moments where I could meet the communities where they are. And I was in this random spot. And I think I needed something from a store, but I was so lost that I was like in my phone. And usually I'm never in my phone. I'm usually like
Yeah.
talking to people, asking them where to go, because I think that's where you generate the authentic relationships. But this day I just happened to be in my phone because I was in a rush, and I'm looking and I'm lost, and I'm like, oh, this is where it said. I turn to my right and I see the thing that I need, and I just go. It ended up being a glass door, and I had to sit there. Luckily, I wasn't hurt, but I had to sit there, and I ran literally face first. And I sat there and I just laughed at myself because I was like, this is the funniest thing, that I just randomly ran into a glass door, and there's
Yeah.
nobody around me where I get to laugh. So I just got to laugh with myself. And it was one of those moments that allowed me to go about my day in a fun way. Like, some people could have took that moment as like, it's so embarrassing, I'm so ashamed, and then you run away. But I
Yeah.
chose that moment to really laugh at myself. And I think we don't do that enough. We get to laugh at ourselves and laugh at our pain and laugh
Yeah.
at our problems and laugh at our happy moments,
Yeah.
because it creates moments where we get to show up as ourselves always. So that was probably the funnest thing that's ever happened to
That
me.
is so great. And you know what? Like, I'm the clumsiest person ever.
Yes,
And
so am I.
I was doing a show the other day and I was like, I'm going to have a slice of pizza before. And I got like pizza sauce all over my shirt and I had to go on stage. And I always make sure I have shirts I can turn around backwards. So,
Great skill.
no one sees it. So I turned my shirt around, but in the middle of my set, I was like, here's my tag, guys. I was eating pizza. And I was like, it ended up being like the best moment of the night. But
Mm,
there's something to be said for that honesty and just knowing that you can run into a glass door or spill stuff on you and you're going to be okay. Just keep laughing.
yes.
Right.
And in that moment, I said, whoever is cleaning these windows are the best. Like, they need to be hired everywhere. Because it was so clear. Um, it was such a funny moment.
That is so great. Oh, like honestly, I would love you to come back at some point. I feel like we've just touched the surface on so much about your coaching techniques and how much you're bringing to everyone you're touching in your lives. It's pretty incredible, and I'm so grateful you've taken the time today. Dominic, like honestly, is there anything you'd like to add before we?
Um, Yeah, I'm so grateful as well, Kate, and I would love to come back and continue this conversation. I think you're so right. We've only touched the surface. There's so much more to leadership.
Yeah.
And just, I'm also excited to meet your audience to meet me. And for those that are looking for that quick next steps in their journey, again, I wrote a book called The Authentic Edge, Leading Without Losing Yourself. And if you're looking for those quick guides, those quick tips on how to navigate mid-level leadership to senior level leadership, you can get my book on Amazon and all places that you get books. And you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm the person that's responding to you directly. Human voice, human person, and
Yes.
we get to interact in that in that way. So yes, I'm excited to continue the conversation.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Dominic. It was a real pleasure.